And you're live.
Welcome to the June 1st Path and Trail Subcommittee remote public meeting. The city encourages our interest and participation in the public hearing process. The Path and Trail Subcommittee is an advisory board to the Transportation Commission. The Path and Trail Subcommittee of the Transportation Commission is hereby established to advise the commission as a whole and provide a public forum for issues surrounding paths and trails. Until further notice, Path and Trail Subcommittee meetings are being held remotely and electronically. While physical facilities are not open to the public, Path and Trail Subcommittee meetings are available on Scottsdale's YouTube channel to allow the public to virtually attend and listen/view the meeting in progress. Citizens wishing to comment or speak on any agenda action item must have submitted public comments or a request to speak form no later than 90 minutes prior to the start of the meeting. Citizen comments will not otherwise be taken during the meeting, but the public is encouraged to submit written comments after the meeting on any matters that happen during this meeting. Citizens that have already submitted a request to speak form are allotted 3 minutes to speak when called upon during the public comment period of the action item. Please mute your device while you are live in the meeting and speaking to help eliminate audio feedback. Begin by stating your name and your address for the record and then proceed with your comment. Those remotely attending this meeting shall observe the same rules of order and decorum as if they were physically in attendance inside City Hall. Thank you for your interest and time. We will now begin the meeting with a roll call.
Chair Anderson.
Present.
Thank you. Subcommittee Member Davis.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Law.
Here.
Thank you. Subcommittee Member Levy. Absent. Commissioner Quayle.
It's Quali, and yes, I'm
I'm
here.
so sorry. Quali. I meant to ask you that earlier. Quali, thank you. All right, we have a quorum. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, Susan, any public comment?
We do not have any.
Okay, therefore we will move on. Item number 1, introduction of new staff and committee members.
Thank you. I'm excited that we do have a representative from the Parks and Recreation Commission today. Commissioner Quali, am I saying that right? If you'd like to tell us a little bit about yourself. She's filling in on the subcommittee until they appoint someone from her group.
Yes, good morning. My name's Teresa Quali. I have lived in Scottsdale for 60 years. I predate the Indian Ben Wash in my childhood riding horses in that area. So I feel like I know the city of park system pretty well. And I spent 6 years on the library board getting off last year. So I'm excited to be involved.
Thank you. And then we have a new staff member in transportation planning here. I can't remember if you met Nathan at the last meeting, but I wanted everybody to have the chance to meet him today.
Hi everyone. I'm Nathan. I just joined. Previously, I've been working on the East Coast in the city of Baltimore on various projects going up and down the eastern seaboard. And me and my family are from Arizona, so we decided to move back and start working for the city of Scottsdale.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Welcome aboard, Nathan and Teresa. We appreciate volunteering, Teresa and Nathan. We hope to hear a lot from you. Now, moving on to the next item is approval of minutes. Is there any comments on the minutes? If nobody has comments, this is Chair Anderson. I have one comment. Susan, if we look at page 3.
Page 3.
Page 3, paragraph 5.
Okay.
line 6, it states, it is anticipated that these modes of transportation going 20 miles or less, I think that should be miles per hour.
I believe that is true. I will make that change.
Okay. That's the only comment I had.
Okay.
If nobody else has any comments, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Commissioner Hall, I so move.
This is Subcommittee Member Davis. I second that motion.
Okay, thank you.
We have a motion, a second. Can we have a vote, please?
Chair Anderson,
Yes?
thank you. Subcommittee Member Davis,
Yes.
Commissioner Lal,
Yes.
Commissioner Qualley.
Yes, I'm going to abstain since I wasn't at the meeting.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
I believe we have a pass. Moving on, next item, path counters update. Susan?
All right, bear with me a second. Got myself out of order.
This is Teresa. I was actually fascinated to know these existed.
Well, that's why I'm glad that we're able to present this, and you bring up an important point on why we have a Parks and Recreation Commission member on this group, because there are things that affect or that impact the parks, and this is one of them. Can everyone see my cover slide?
Yes.
Sure can.
All right.
Yes.
So we're really excited about this one because we've been working on following counts over the years and looking at what other cities are doing. But cities have, for many decades, collected vehicular and transit data, but they've only recently begun adding bicycle pedestrian data to their programs. And this is important because this data allows cities to justify system expansion or needed improvements, as well as providing support on grant funding applications. And this is a foundational tool in the evaluation and planning area, which is one of the 5 E's in measuring a city's bike friendliness by the League of American Bicyclists. And these long-term trends can be analyzed for better connectivity, level of service, mode share, and crash rates. And it can supplement targeted education and enforcement, which are 2 of the other 5 E's. Better data can also help support changes to federal, regional, and local funding splits between the various travel modes. And up until a few years ago, our only method for looking at counts was really on the journey to work data collected in the American Community Survey. But the issues with that is there are people that ride bikes for all other reasons, not just for work. So it was very limited in what that showed cities. And over the past several years, the technology has been emerging. That was one of the reasons that we were kind of watching to see best practices in other communities. But with that included several types of counters and companies themselves. EcoCounter was chosen as our first count site vendor or company at the Crosscut Canal Bridge and Path. That was installed in the summer 2018. And it uses what's called Zelt inductive loops to detect the cyclists. So those loops are added into the concrete. And the pyro sensor urban post detects pedestrians. And these also show us direction of travel for both types of users. Then in a little more than a year ago, in the spring of 2020, transportation staff identified 8 locations where we wanted to install these same types of permanent counters. And we also purchased 2 mobile counters that we could deploy in various locations. And we utilized the city's on-call contractor to complete the installation of the 8 new locations. And that was completed April 2021. So this had an average cost of $22,500 per site for the equipment as well as the installation. And on the map, you can see here that we'll go into each location in a moment, but the green dots represent these permanent locations. And then the yellow, it's just a list that we keep adding for where we would like to deploy the mobile units. So this is just a kind of a snapshot at 1 month of data. So we went April 16th to May 16th on all of our permanent sites. And then just please note that the Crosscut Canal Bridge, the total is from the previous month, March to April. We just had some issue with the data where it didn't look right, and we could tell that something wasn't counted to give us an accurate comparison. But our total citywide for a 30-day period was 160, almost 161,000 users counted. Let's see. As we go into each individual location, we'll get to see the comparison a little bit better between which ones have more cyclists versus pedestrians. But basically, I think most of our areas have more people biking than walking. And then just to clarify, if a person is using a scooter, that does get counted as a bicycle just due to the metal being detected as opposed to a pedestrian. Our average weekday and weekends for that month, when you look at we can break the data down a lot more by time of day, days of the week, as well as peak times, peak days. But just looking at this general couple graphs, you can see that a similar hourly usage is seen by bicyclists and pedestrians on both weekdays on the left and on weekends. The green indicates bicyclists and the blue indicates pedestrians. And one of the reasons I like to be able to look at something like this is over time and throughout the year. It'll be nice to make comparisons of some of it we know early in the morning as the weather heats up, and then evenings we can expect to see more usage. But sometimes when we've looked at the Crosscut Canal data, since we've had a longer time to look at the usage there, sometimes there are things that do surprise us. I think when we were looking last year around this time, for some reason, I think Tuesday evenings was a busy time there. That doesn't mean we know why, but it's nice to be able to look at those different usage patterns. Again, this is looking at all the sites and that monthly breakdown on the left, the green indicating cyclists with the bluish gray representing pedestrians. So there is, 60% of what's counted is cyclists, and that's what we would expect in the areas where we happen to have counters. And then when I go to each individual slide, we'll look more at where they're located, but I think we have 3 parks currently where we installed the new ones. And then the next several slides will examine so it'll look at 1 week of data and for each day. Weekends have higher usage like we would expect, but the weekdays show fairly consistent usage in most of our locations. So here's the first one. I'm going south to north because that's just kind of how my brain works when I'm looking at things. But this is in McKellips Park. In the photo, it's actually looking kind of southeast toward the lake. And if you're familiar with this area, it's up toward the top of a hill. So if you were heading northbound on the path, you would pass this counter before you reach the top of the hill. And you can see on the map there to kind of indicate we're not far from McKellips Road, where people come from Tempe, or as people are heading south, they're going to Tempe. This one has pretty high usage of cyclists, so 69% for that monthly breakdown. I think I said earlier we were going to look at the weeks, but this is still a monthly breakdown. And some of these photos may show a little better, but you can see in the photo on the concrete, there's kind of a diamond pattern of saw cuts where the loops were added beneath the concrete, and then that was sealed up. So this bollard is pretty, pretty unnoticeable a lot of times, but it contains all the counter equipment. It contains the batteries. You can't see it in the photo, but there's a little lens near the top, and then that's what picks up the pedestrians. And all of these, other than this crosscut canal bridge or crosscut canal path, all of our other 8 permanent locations, we manually upload the data. It doesn't take very long. I mean, you just have to go out with a laptop and collect the data. But this one, when it was installed, we happened to add the automatic uploads to EcoCounter's dashboard. So we can look at it. I think it's every 15 minutes that it refreshes. So we can look at how it's doing, how the batteries look, what the counts are, things like that. And I'll talk about that a little bit more at the end. But this again is the one that was installed in summer of 2018. We would love, from what the map shows, to do the mobile counter on the east side, because that's where the main path is. We would love to compare the usage there, but this was the reason we added it on the east part of the bridge, where the path goes down into the neighborhood. So it goes down off the canal behind several houses and then connects to a little trailhead here at Bellevue Street and 66th. We wanted to be able to show that there's so much usage coming from that neighborhood. We knew that was the case back when we were planning the path connection and the bridge. Every time we were out in the field checking something, somebody was climbing up the canal bank, even with strollers, to get to the canal. So this one's a good one to help us show what we already knew was needed in that area. And it's a high percentage of cyclists compared to pedestrians. Indian School Park, this is just east of Hayden, and it is just south of the tunnel, the east-west tunnel under Hayden Road that connects both sides of Indian School Park. This is also a high number of cyclists, high percentage, 65%. This area, what's interesting in this area is that from Indian School Road north, or from this point north, the path is on both sides of Hayden Road. So it stays that way until you get up to McDonald. And that's something we'll want to be looking at over time, because once you cross to the east, you then have Camelback Park, Chaparral Park. But if you stay on the west, it's what we think is probably more through traffic for bicycles, which makes sense if someone's not trying to access those parks to the north of this area. But this made the best sense in this area for installation. And one thing to keep in mind, we can look at a map when we're planning and say, oh, I bet this would be a great spot. But then we have to look in more detail at the locations. There's a lot of technical things that rule out the feasibility of the counters. Either it would point too much toward the sun, toward a road, water, or something else that would reflect and cause counting issues. And then even high power lines can cause problems. Chaparral Park. So this one's
Susan, Dave Meinhardt, one key point on that previous one, that was by far the heaviest usage site of any of the counters that we have for cycling, over double what any other site recorded in that month, if you refer back to the table that was provided.
Okay, so heaviest usage for numbers. Okay, the actual numbers, not percent.
Total usage is including pedestrian, and far more than any other site for cycling.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. So for Chaparral Park, this one is, again, we know this is a busy area, and the path, the best location was just north of the lake, so that we wouldn't be dealing with water reflecting sunlight. This has a very high percentage of pedestrians compared to cyclists. But what we think when we put the mobile counter on the other side of Hayden Road, we feel we'll be able to kind of have those percentages probably flip, but this is a very busy area. This is north of where the planned underpass will be under Chaparral Road, just east of the Hayden traffic signal, which we know because of how busy this area is, that crossing will be a great enhancement for this area so that people don't have to mix with traffic when they travel to and from the park. Arizona Canal Path. This is an area between Pima Road and Pima Path and the 82nd Street pedestrian bridge. In this area, the path happens to not be right on the canal bank, but we found a spot that we felt would work. We would love to have other areas along the Arizona Canal, but there are a lot of issues to work with SRP to get approvals. And so for us at this time, this location works the best. We previously looked at Goldwater. So that would have been west of Goldwater on the south of Arizona Canal where the underpass is. And we were really excited about that location because we wanted to see what kind of usage patterns are coming and going from the waterfront area in Old Town. And, we can do mobile counts in the future there, but this area, we have a very high percentage of cyclists, but we also do have pedestrians in that area. That 82nd Street bridge, you can see on the left side of the map, a lot of people do come from that neighborhood up to that area. That was added as an enhancement project for that neighborhood. And it helps people access the path, which is north of the canal. Pima Path. So this location obviously gets used by a high percentage of cyclists, but this is north. We were going to add it just north of the canal, and we ended up closer to Indian Bend Road. This is an area where there's a neighborhood connection. So that Cactus Wren Road, that cul-de-sac, happens to have a little paths connection over to Pima Path, which is a great example of, in our transportation action plan, we are looking at ways, additional ways for pedestrians especially, but also cyclists to connect from neighborhoods, even if there isn't vehicular access there. So because if you live right next to a path and you have to go far out of your way, a whole mile or mile and a half to get up and around using the roads, we want to plan communities so that you have shortcuts if you're biking and walking. This area shows, again, a really high percentage of cyclists. And at this time, there is not bike lanes along Pima Road in all of the segments. So we expected that we would see a lot of cyclist use along the path here. And then the route itself, as you go farther south, alternates between path and a street route on 87th Terrace, which is on the neighborhood side of the wall. McCormick Parkway. So if you're familiar with this area, or if you're not familiar, in the photo, it's looking east toward the Hayden McCormick Parkway traffic signal. So this is an area where the path comes up the west side of Hayden Road and then crosses at the crosswalk and utilizes the north side of the road just until you get over to where the people head north along the lakes in McCormick Ranch. This area has just high usage in general. Every time we've dealt with needing to close part of the path for maintenance purposes, it's a lot of people use this area walking and biking. And let me go back really quick. And several years ago, Maricopa Association of Governments did, I think, a 2-year just short-term counts project. And this is very close to where they collected data for those MAG counts at the time. So we at least have some historical data to compare it to. And they used an eco counter, mobile counter for that at the time. So we do have that data. So the path south of Cholla, we've mostly just called this Indian Bend Wash Path, but this is actually Upper Camelback Wash Path. So this is just south of the underpass at Cactus, and this is just south of Cholla. but this area has higher than I expected cyclist percentages. And this area, before this last mile little gap was constructed several years ago, people had to go a little bit out of their way using the streets in the neighborhood. But the path was otherwise constructed from Westworld Horizon Park area all the way down to Tempe. So this was a very important area that where the path finally got constructed, and helps us collect data for that northern area of Scottsdale. So the Loop 101 has a pedestrian, equestrian, and bicycle bridge over the Loop 101. This area is important to us to really look at that east-west travel. Sweetwater is a great low stress route for people biking, and that was the reason we chose this area. We debated, should we go on the west side, should we go on the east side? This has a longer path connection into the neighborhood here on the east side of the freeway bridge, and it has what we felt was probably an area that does have a lot of people walking. So that's what we're seeing with almost a 50-50 split. So the next steps we have for this is really to study the counts. We hope to collect the data from the counters monthly, or at the very least quarterly, but I think monthly would be best. Continue providing updates. We will also look at MAG's upcoming or ongoing regional bike and pedestrian counts project. That has, those are street locations that were selected by MAG with some input from the agencies. So we'll look at where they are on their project, and this helps us make comparisons. And then when we reapplied to the League of American Bicyclists in 2023 for our bicycle friendly community application, that is the one of the newer questions. When we applied in 2019, it did say, do you collect bicycle counts? If so, how do you collect them? Please upload the data here. So that's a newer question, but it makes sense from a planning standpoint to really compare what cities are doing to support cycling. And then I just have a screenshot of what the dashboard looks like, or it's the old dashboard for EcoCounter, but it is great because we can run reports. We can't necessarily dictate what the color would be, that type of thing on the reports, but I think it can help us to quickly grab data and visualize that. And we will also look at ways to add our count data to our webpage for the public to view. I think it's very important for people to see for all different reasons. But one of my favorites, or I should say least favorites, is when someone says, why are you building this bike project for 20 people? And we say, well, it's not for 20 people. There's more than you realize, but until we have real numbers to be able to show, I think people don't necessarily understand how many people are biking and walking in Scottsdale, not just in some areas, but throughout the city. With that, if you need me to go back to any slides, let me know. I'll take questions and comments.
Thank you, Susan. This is Chair Anderson. This is a very interesting presentation. I know we've had talks previously with respect to, installing these counters. And as you said, I think it's very important that we know what our citizens and bicyclists and pedestrians are traveling, so we can allocate the funds to those areas that need the most work on it.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there any questions from any of the staff? Any of the committee members? Commissioner Law, I see your hand up, please.
Yes, Commissioner Lal. On the counters, making it automatic, you did talk about cost and benefit, doing it manually. What is the cost of making it automatic? And you also gave me an impression that at least one of them is automatic.
Thank you, Chair Anderson, Commissioner Law. I'm going to let Greg Davies answer that. He works with all the technical aspects of the counters, and he has those numbers.
Yes, this is Greg Davies, Senior Transportation Planner of the City of Scottsdale. Thank you, Chair Anderson and Commissioner Law. That's a good question. Our first counter that we installed was the crosscut counter, and that was done in May of 18. And we decided to move with a automatic retrieval, and that cost per year is $250 per counter. And so we have used that systems since then for the last several years. We felt that when we put these new counters in, to go out manually would be a lot more cost effective, and it'd be way more benefit cost to gathering the data. So it is fairly expensive to have automatic transmission, where it only takes at the most 5 minutes to go out with a laptop and extract the data from the counter. So we felt that that would be the best option, to do manually.
If I could add to that, Commissioner Law, this Dave Meinhardt, another benefit of the manual collection is I'm a big believer in having our staff get out and into the field and see for themselves what's going on. And as we mentioned, we did have this particular counter. Actually, there were some anomalies in the data, and found that somebody had actually had put a flyer over the electronic eye for checking the pedestrian counts. So there's extra benefit as well. While I think the dollar cost is actually the same or less on average, especially if you add in more counters to have staff go out there once a month and collect the data. But it also gives us an opportunity to have another reason to get out there and have eyes in the field, is to see what's going on in person. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And, if there ever came a time where we evaluated the cost benefits, we can always add it as an option on the counters that we have in the future, if we choose to do that.
Okay, just Chair Anderson, maybe this question is for Dave. Do you go out when you collect the data manually? Is it like a one-day deal? You send a staff member out there to hit all the locations in one time, or do you stagger it over a week's period of time? Over. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Anderson. This is Greg Davies.
Yeah, Greg can answer that one.
Yeah, I can answer that one. Thank you, Chair Anderson, for that question. When we go collect the data, we do it in one fell swoop. We go out and we collect the data from all the counters, other than the crosscut at this point in time. We're not going to renew that automatic download. So we just do it one fell swoop, and it takes, like I said, per counter about 5 minutes to count, to get all the data for all the counters. No, the most an hour and a half, 2 hours. So that's what we do.
That sounds like it's more cost effective than $250 a location. That's for sure on it. Another quick question on you show basically 9 permanent, the original one, and 8 new ones we've put in, and 7 mobiles. I noticed there was no data for the mobiles. Do we have 7 mobiles, or do we have 1 or 2 mobiles that we move around? Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Chair Anderson, and members of the subcommittee. Again, this is Greg Davies. We have 2 mobile counters that we can deploy, and we plan on deploying one of those as a pilot test, just to check the location at the Regency location, which is the 2nd Street path. So there's 2 mobile counters that we have that we can mobilize anywhere in the city, essentially.
And that location Greg's referring to is between Miller Road and the Indian Bend Wash, and it's along the 2nd Street, what we call the 2nd Street path. But it'll really help us to see which people are heading toward the Greenbelt from Old Town, or from the path over to Old Town, which connects behind Civic Center Library as people continue west. And what date or what time frame?
We plan on doing that. Probably, I would like to do it this week.
Yeah, so we will have, in future updates, we'll be able to show you what we've collected on these different mobile locations, and we'll keep adding to that list too as we think about it more and analyze it.
Another quick question, Mr. Chair Anderson. You identified the cost of these average cost of units of $22,500 per site. What does a mobile unit cost?
It's a good question. I
Thank
can't
you,
recall.
Chair Anderson and members of the subcommittee. This is Greg Davies. The cost of a urban multi-post is $5,600. The cost of a mobile unit is a similar cost. I don't know the exact cost, but I guess it's right around $5,000 per mobile unit.
Yeah, and we can get a more accurate number if you need.
That's
If I can jump in, Dave Minor, yeah, we paid just over $5,000 per unit for the two mobile.
Okay, thank you.
so there you go. It's around
But one,
$5,000.
yeah, one key with those, as I've learned talking with Greg and Susan last week, is we do have to have some sort of a vertical post or tree trunk or something to be able to attach those to. So there are some limitations on how you deploy those because they have to be attached to something.
True. And then for the bicycle count portion of it, there's mini tubes. So different, thinner than the ones that you drive over if you ever notice places where vehicular counts are being taken. But so these locations that you see in yellow could change and shift as we vet those areas more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't see any additional hands from the commission, from the committee members. If that's the case, we can move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item 4, I believe. Go ahead.
So we'll give Kieran a moment to load his slides. And Kieran, if you're talking, it looks like you're still muted.
Yes, I'm ready to share my screen.
Thank you.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Yes.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kiran Gantapalli. I'm one of the principal traffic engineers with the city. And today I'm going to talk about green bike lanes and pavement markings. These are the traffic control devices that are used on roadways to better direct bicyclists and also vehicular traffic. Again, thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk at this subcommittee. So there's a slight delay in moving the slide, so bear with me. Again, the manual on uniform traffic control devices is published by FHWA and is the guide that we use to install traffic control devices in any public right of way. And this directory of devices is published to maintain uniformity on traffic control devices all throughout the nation. And whenever a new traffic control device comes up and research is done on these traffic control devices, FHWA reviews these studies and publishes an interim approval to add these traffic control devices to manual on uniform traffic control devices. The last MUTCD or manual on uniform traffic control devices was published in 2009. And the green bike lanes is added as an interim approval. We call it IA-14. Again, FHWA approved it interim. And the next version of MUTCD is currently under review, and FHWA or federal government just published it. It's going through a rule-making process to release a new MUTCD, and this green bike lanes is included in the interim next version of METCD. The application, as part of this interim approval, it designated how these bike lane, pavement markings could be used. Again, this is the first application that the green bike lanes are permitted to use. It's a colored marking that can be used as a supplement to in the bicycle lane, bicycle symbol pavement marking. The green colored pavement is green color is applied below the bicycle symbol along with the arrow. And the white lines are still required, and this doesn't really give any exception to eliminate these white lines when a green pavement marking is installed. The next application where this can be used is as a filler between the two in the skip marks when at the intersection or a driveway where there are dotted lines. You can use this as a filler between the two white dotted lines across the driveway or an intersection. And the third application is where there's a conflict point between vehicles turning into a right turn lane, and bicycles are expected to drive through. So the pattern shown in the image in the slide is how it should be used for the interim approval. These are the three applications that were published in the interim approval. And we contacted a few agencies in the valley to see what their input is on using the bike lanes. One thing that came out of it is practitioners feel that this will ensure bicyclists and conflict areas are more conspicuous. And also practitioners feel that these bike lanes will enhance or increase the use of bicycle facilities. The biggest or the maintenance concerns that were brought about was the high installation cost, and these degrade frequently over time and need frequent and ongoing maintenance. And this frequent in the sense, if it's a bike symbol, it's only maintained when overlay or a pavement upgrade happens. But green bike lanes would be more maintenance is needed for these green bike lanes. Again, in summary, the key considerations on these green bike lanes is first, there's no staff tried to find any safety evaluations done as part of any documented safety evaluations were completed, and we couldn't get our hand on anything that says that the safety benefits to this application. And again, we also want to stress that this is an engineering traffic control device, and the application will be based on an identified need and an engineering judgment. And application shall conform to METCD. And if we decide to go with this installation, we need to identify funds for install and maintenance. And this is a very short presentation, and I'm open to answering any questions that come up. Thank you.
Anderson. Thank you, Kiran. This is an interesting thing. You say that, this is Chair Anderson. You say that, as I noticed in your presentation, that there's 4, 5, 6 or 7 cities that have implemented it right now.
Yes, sir.
And go ahead.
There are a couple of cities in the East Valley. Of course, Phoenix uses them, and there are a couple of cities in the West Valley too.
Okay, I see a couple hands from the committee members. Commissioner Law.
Yes, Commissioner Law. I'm kind of surprised by no documented benefits. It's when you say no documented, are we talking about only our local cities, Arizona cities?
This is Commissioner Lal and the subcommittee. This is a relatively new installation, and typically for any safety analysis, there's a before and after. So there's not much done, or we couldn't get our hand on anything that says that prior to a bicycle lane installation, before a green pavement is installed, these are the safety numbers. And after a green bike lane is installed, these are the safety numbers. So there's no documented evidence that says that the device is, say, getting a 20% improvement in safety by installing these. There's no such documented evidence as such.
Okay, thank you. I understand, Commissioner Lal again. But have we looked at any documented evidence in cities nationally as opposed to just Arizona?
Yes, sir, we tried again, my resource was basically doing a Google search and at the CMF Clearinghouse and TRB, and I couldn't get my hand on. And within the short span, we could get our hand on anything.
Because I'm certain city of Portland, Oregon has used these green markings for several years, and they may have data that might give you some clues. So maybe worth looking at Portland, Oregon. Thanks.
Commissioner Lal, we'll definitely look into that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lal. I had seen a hand from Commissioner Qualley. Are you?
Yes, this is Teresa. My question was along the same lines, but I was more interested in, there are certain cities that I know Scottsdale sort of measures themselves by as far as size and, demographics of the population, et cetera. Speaking personally as somebody who drives along Hayden north to Pinnacle Peak, where there are lots of bike lanes and lots of people going really fast and lots of right turn lanes, I can see where the green is a great reminder to those of us that are driving and sharing the road with them. So intuitively, to me, it seems to make sense. But I confess I have the same curiosity that Commissioner Laff does about, what kinds of data and things, because particularly up in that area, people are going pretty fast, 45, 50 miles an hour along that stint. And I can see where this could be very helpful.
Commissioner and some committee members, these are traffic control devices, and our intent on using them is where there's a conflict point. Our bicycle system network is well established, and pretty much everybody driving on our streets, they see bicyclists and bicycle lanes everywhere. If it's a city where there are bicycle lanes only in certain locations and they're not much prevalent, these devices are very helpful, but our bicycle network is well established, and we frequently review our striping plans whenever there's an overlay, and there's very few conflict points where we see, we would try to say absolutely none, but we try to address with regular striping. And this is definitely a huge investment to maintenance. It comes with a huge maintenance. So we'll certainly look at it and see where it could be used in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Teresa, I guess I don't disagree that our lanes are well established, but we have lots of tourists. We want to come back and drive on our streets, and they may not be quite as familiar with the fact that we share the road so many places with bicyclists. So any identification you can do, I think, is positive.
We'll certainly look into it. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. This is Chair Anderson. Question for the staff. I mean, are we looking at implementing some type of implementation of these type of things in the city, or are we just doing studies at this time?
We, Commissioner and subcommittee members, we have not identified any locations to install these yet, but we'll definitely evaluate based on any conflict zones we identify on what traffic control needs to be installed.
So we are thinking about doing, or at least trying a pilot program for this to get started on in the city and see how it pans out cost wise and effectiveness wise. Is that correct?
At this time, we have not identified. It certainly could be brought into our program in the future, but we have not identified. Commissioner, it doesn't mean that we'll never do them. We will certainly do them, but we have not identified any locations that need such a treatment yet.
And Mr. Chair Anderson, again, I would think that if we did, back in February, we had a presentation on the bicycle and pedestrian collision report, at least a draft of it. I would feel that the correlation between that and the bicycle portion of that in locations might be helpful in determining some areas where we could do at least test, projects and get some comparative, data. I would think that would be helpful.
We'll certainly evaluate and come back to the committee on it. Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? I see Committee Member Davis has your hands up.
Yes, this is Subcommittee Member Davis. Kieran, I guess I want to echo the thoughts of my fellow commissioners. Thanks very much for the presentation. It was very informative. It was certainly interesting for me to, see some of the other fiscal aspects of lane installation, especially the ongoing concerns of maintenance. So I certainly appreciate staff's focus on keeping our costs down. I guess having spent some time, like Commissioner Lal said, in Portland and certainly driving around Tempe, their bike lanes are green markings are very evident, and I would be somewhat surprised if so many cities across the country were putting such a large capital cost in to install these markings and maintain them if there wasn't at least some benefit. So I guess I don't think we could take an action here, but I would very much put my support behind an eventual pilot program similar to what Commissioner Anderson said, for us to at least do an evaluation of the impact in our city. Just because I would hate for the topic of these markings to kind of just become lost in a long-term evaluation rather than actually at some point putting markings on a street to at least give it a try. Thank you.
Subcommittee member and commissioners will certainly take that under advisement. I also want to stress this, point out that these are traffic control devices, and there needs to be some engineering judgment in installing a traffic control device than just going and installing it. So we'll certainly look at locations where there is a problem, identify a problem before installing a traffic control device, and we'll certainly look into it. Thank you.
Thank you, Karan. I don't see any other hands. I think that this is something that I feel the staff should look at. I mean, I think the safety, I know that when I drive around town, those green markings catch my eye with respect to it. Anyway, okay. Any more questions or anything from committee members? Doesn't look like it. We will move on to the item number 5, other transportation projects.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let me get the slide. Oops. Let's see. Updates. Can everyone see my slide, cover slide?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is a pretty brief update. Our transportation commissioners have seen most of these slides more recently at their meeting, but this is to just give an idea of all the different things that are happening, that are planned in the lower southern half of southern Scottsdale for bicyclists and pedestrians, and also for all road users, whether it's maintenance related or bigger or spot projects or roadway segments that are more like streetscapes. But the one that you've Probably followed throughout the past year is 70th Street Bikeway and Old Town Bicycle Master Plan. I'll get to those shortly. We also have McDowell Road, upcoming bike lanes that are about to start. Which, do you know time frame just yet, Greg? Any day now, but
Well, the construction is going to start this month.
on striping, adding bike lanes to McDowell Road. There won't be heavy construction. It's not like when we're widening a road, but it will add new surface and narrow the travel lanes, keeping the same number of them, and then adding bike lane. We have a similar project planned for Thomas Road from 56th Street to 73rd, which is just east of Scottsdale Road. That's planned for late fiscal year 2022. And the 68th Street project from Indian School Road to Thomas. Both of those projects are reducing. With the Thomas Road project, we're removing the third eastbound travel lane. And on 68th Street, we're taking it from 4 lanes to 2 lanes, but adding some additional left turn lanes to accommodate those new striped bike lanes. Indian School Road was completed about, I want to say 2007 from Scottsdale Road, I think Scottsdale Road to Pima Road. That was a major streetscape project. And then some upcoming improvements along Camelback Road, including the sidewalk from Miller Road to Scottsdale Road. We have HOPs, or pedestrian hybrid beacons. The Scottsdale Road crossing just south of Oak near Palm Lane was completed November 2020. We have 2 other upcoming ones in this area in Southern Scottsdale, 86th Street and Thomas Road, as well as Camelback and Saddlebag Trail. And then out of this area, but very important to note, is the one on Indian Bend Road was just completed in February this year, near the McCormick Stillman Railroad Park, where there was a lot of pedestrian crossings during events. And then the Hayden Road at the sports fields was just this in April 2021. And that one is near, you said the Princess? Yeah, and the Princess. So we're looking at a lot of different things. Some of these, as I mentioned earlier, are done during regular paving maintenance projects. As often as we can, we want to coordinate even additional improvements during that time. And then the 68th Street and the McDowell Road project and Thomas and Indian School, we do add a new surface. So we coordinate. It's not a paving maintenance project, but we add all of that at that time so that the street operations group can focus their maintenance projects on other segments. There's also an alley maintenance program that's ongoing. I think that's to assist with dust control, and street light conversion program ongoing. If you look by area, that's to replace the fixtures with LED lighting. I felt like when I saw my first street LED light, I thought, gosh, it's dimmer, but it's actually not. It's a crisper definition, so you can see better. But it's much longer lasting before it needs to be replaced. And then lighted intersection street signs. The first of that will be was Camelback and Scottsdale Road. So that gives much better visibility to the street signs for people at night. Real quick update on 70th Street Neighborhood Bikeway. So this is the 2.5 mile corridor from the Scottsdale Tempe boundary up to 2nd Street in Old Town. The final report will be completed this week. They had a second virtual public meeting in March to get more feedback. And then based on our existing conditions, traffic volumes, public feedback, and parking usage, they ended up with 2 primary concepts for our staff to consider for future improvements, which include sharrows and bike lanes, along with other design elements. And we will continue looking at options to implement near-term improvements that are low cost, low impact on the neighborhood, including preserving parking. And we may have a blend of the 2 concepts. And in the future, we will keep the project webpage updated with any changes in the status of this bikeway. And that's the first of our neighborhood bikeways that we're looking at in the transportation action plan. So we learned a lot as we planned this one. The Old Town Bicycle Master Plan, stakeholder focus group meetings were held April 26th to May 11th. We had 4 different groups and they each had 3 meetings to give very detailed feedback, and an updated PowerPoint video will be added to our webpage probably in July, just to summarize the plan and the public feedback, and then the recommendations from that plan. And then the plan itself will be completed shortly after that. April was bike month. Normally we have in-person bike events every April, but similar to last year, we did not hold that. But this year, as an alternative, we held several virtual rides. So there was a self-guided ride when you want, Cycle the Arts ride, so that people could still download the event or the route map itself and then read about the artwork, as well as there was an app where if you used the app, it would provide you enhanced information about the artwork at each stop. And then there was a ride on your own bike to work week. So we had approximately 90 people that downloaded the route map for Cycle the Arts. That's a great number. We usually don't have 90 people come to our event. Usually we get about 50 when we have the in-person event, which is to me more manageable for the small groups for us to lead them around. And then we had about 15 people share the video, or excuse me, share the photo they took along their bike ride with one of the art pieces so that they could win prizes. We had a Valley Metro Bike Month neck gaiter that has the design you see on the slide. And then we had Scottsdale Bike Month t-shirts that we had purchased last year right before everything shut down. So we did want to at least give people some prizes. And you can still find the route map. We'll leave that up on the site on scottsdaleaz.gov. You just have to search paths. And then once you get to that Paths and Trails page, it's the information about Bike Month and summarizing everything is about halfway down. But we think we've had requests over the years to provide something that people can do on their own. And this helped us learn a lot on how we can provide that. And we can't wait till next April to get back to having in-person events. I think that's my last slide. Does anyone have any questions before we go to future items? Looks like we don't.
I don't see any hands raised, so thank you,
Oh,
Susan. We will,
sorry. Were we skipping to future items or?
No, I'm going to go to that slide
Oh,
next. Or not
Very
slide,
good. Thank you.
okay.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Does
So-
anybody on the committee have any requests or ideas about future items for the committee to review?
Yes, Chair Anderson, this is Subcommittee Member Davis. Susan, I don't know if this would warrant a special topic or not, but I had seen on the City of Scottsdale website that they've started doing some more public outreach regarding the improvements to the Civic Center Mall. And I think some of the other commissions have received presentations about it. I think Parks and Rec did, amongst others. One of the things that I've been really excited about from the previous version of the master plan for that space was that it was pointed out to be a dedicated bike path through the area. And I think in some of the current renderings I've seen, there is no such bike path. So I might be interested to get kind of a tailored presentation about how we're going to incorporate bicycle connectivity or infrastructure specific to that project.
Okay, thank you.
Just
And that, as a reminder to everyone, that public open house is going on right now for anyone that would like to take a look at that, but we can look at getting some kind of an update on the project.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Right now, we have one item planned for your August 3rd meeting, which we'll be reviewing the bikeways, trails, and pedestrian elements of the transportation action plan. And we like to have 2 items, not typically for this group, but depending on what we add, we may have a lot of information to go over just for that one item that day. So we'll keep you updated as that date gets closer once you get your packets. And you can always email me if you think of other future items for us to add to the list.
Okay, thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
I guess I don't see any other hand raised or comments. Then if that's the case, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
This is Subcommittee Member Davis. So moved.
Do I have a second?
Commissioner Qualley, seconded.
We have a motion and a second. Call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are officially adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies.
Thank you. Have a great day. Thanks for your time today.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Just over now.